Expectations and rigor. It is important, if the principle of social equity or social justice is to be adopted, that the same expectations and rigor is expected of bilingual students, bilingual education students, as is expected of monolingual educational program students. So more often than not, it has been seen that these students are given a simplified form of curriculum, which is strongly discouraged. So one has to have high expectations and a mutual respect based on an understanding that it takes time for the learners to grasp both languages. It takes time for them to understand content in a language which is new to them, but it is important not to simplify the languages. Yes, do simplify, use simple words, but not to oversimplify so as that they do not they are not able to develop the kinds of skills in the content knowledge that the monolingual educational program students might develop. So the important thing is not to hold them back and to amplify knowledge, to use more examples and to expand their knowledge, and not to sort of like bring them a grade lower. So it is important to provide them with an environment where risk-taking becomes easier for them. So there is no ridicule as they try to practice new linguistic items, as they talk about the content, as they misunderstand the content, make mistakes. It is all right to make mistakes. This is the kind of environment that encourages risk-taking, very important for bilingual children. And it is important that the classrooms are not just based on remedial drills. So there has to be co-construction of knowledge, and new things have to be added, and these things must not be seen. A bilingual education program might not be seen as a tracking system in which students who are thought to be lesser able are put together. So the students should be engaged to synthesize knowledge, to put together the facts, synthesize them, generalize to other contexts, other subjects, to explain them, describe them, analyze them, think about how things would be different and why things would be different, hypothesize, all those scientific terms, all those scientific steps that are needed to arrive at a conclusion. These should be used with bilingual education students also. So we need to focus on the structure of the language, structure of the content itself. So we need to maybe to give more explanations over here, and that can be done, as we said earlier. Maybe attention can be drawn towards high frequency words, words that are used again and again and again in a given context, given academic context. For instance, at times they are transition words, and then there are words used like define, describe, analyze. What do they mean? So maybe they can be taught separately. And then vocabulary related to a specific discipline, that is the genre they are engaged in, can also be taught. The style of the style of the content, the style of the discipline, how things are done, what comes first, what comes next, and of course, the focus should also always be on metacognitive skills, that is, enabling them to think about their own learning strategies, so to be in control of their own learning process. That is very important, so they can work alone. So when we talk about metacognition and think it is important, then Dermody and Speaker would, in 1995 said that this relates to tracking your thinking in relation to specific situations. That is, How am I trying to resolve this problem? Let me think about this problem. All right, so what are the strategies that I'm using to resolve this problem? Is this strategy that I used earlier to resolve a similar problem, does it apply over here, or do I need to change my strategies? This monitoring of comprehension, this is a very important aspect of metacognition and extremely important because it leads to corrective action. That is, once I realize that the strategy that I am using to resolve the problem, a similar problem that I faced earlier, then I can take what they call corrective action and use a different strategy. This involves cooperative learning as a very important tool, group work, different types and purposes can be for the group work. Group work is always less problematic. It's risk-taking within a group is much easier than taking a risk of giving the wrong answer in a classroom. So it somehow minimizes the stress of the new learners. So within the group work, one can create a genuine reason for interaction. For instance, there are at times information gap activities. So each student, for instance, reads one specific part of a given text, like a jigsaw puzzle, and then they try to bring it together. So there's a genuine need for each child to interact with others within a given group. And if this is a heterogeneous group in which some students have a higher language proficiency and the others are lower, then they are learning language from each other. Similarly, dictogloss is also a very good way of that is used in cooperative learning. It's a good method. And the whole point is about constructing together the meaning of the text or problem solving, which involves genuine discussion, and you try to scaffold each other's learning. So what happens, for instance, in dictogloss is that the teacher at quite a normal speed dictates a kind of a passage, a small passage to the learners which has difficult vocabulary in it, and the students are asked to take notes. When the students take notes, it is expected that they would not have copied everything, and each one of them would have actually taken down only bits and pieces of the text. Then they get together to put those bits and pieces of structure and vocabulary together to come to a certain kind of meaning. We talked about jigsaw puzzle also, and it's all about communicative gap. And the point is, again, that the expectation that we have from the bilingual students should be as cognitively demanding as are expected from monolingual students in another educational program.